back a little.
Okay.
Okay, we'll all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, we don't have any appointments, but first off, before we go to public comment, I would like to welcome Denny.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that he was one of the ones that agreed. He has the most knowledge, and he is really going to be good for us. I just know.
Thank you.
Okay. So, we don't have any appointments. Unscheduled matters. Public comment pertaining to agenda items. Yes, Ralph.
Just curious if under correspondence there might be an email from the Conservation Commission from overnight, maybe?
You're by noon on Friday?
No, we just discussed it last night, but it's an urgent issue, so I didn't know if, I'll save the rest for the next comment.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, moving right along. We have CPS units for highway and police. Was John going to present that?
He was, but he called me and dropped everything off with Toni. So here is the requested information. One set for each of you. There's a police and a public works.
Okay. Works and police.
So he said that he did not see a critical need to do the cruisers before the end of the year, but he sees that it may be more critical to do DPW before snow flies. But he is not against it either. So you can see what the monthly rate is and what it is by the number of vehicles. So I think both Brock Mitchell, the DPW director, and John think that this can be absorbed into their budgets, and nobody is against it. Again, I would just recommend promulgating a written policy on who can pull it. I think we talked about this before, that we leave that up to the emergency management director, and then we'll just have a request form if in the event that a resident complains that Ballard's Ridge Road didn't get plowed for 18 hours, then we'll just make a written request to pull the GPS for the truck that has that route and provide that to the Board of Selectmen. And that way we can, I think we need to manage the safety of the drivers not knowing where they are, and nobody can really watch it in real time other than the emergency management director, who happens to be the police chief.
Yeah.
Kelley, a quick question. The GPS, is that information recorded on the GPS and then we download it to a different device? How do we store that information?
So it's a plug-in for the, I think for both the PD and the cruisers. It's a plug-in directly to the vehicle, and then it goes into a software system that whoever has access. And there's different parts that you can, we can set up, just like you have permissions in any kind of software where somebody could see it after the fact, somebody could see certain parts of it, somebody could see certain vehicles. Obviously, police, because it's operational and an officer safety issue, those will never be available to us in real time, only to the chief.
How long do we store that information? I mean,
It's in a cloud, I think.
my concern is that, if something happens 3 years from now and we get a lawsuit, are we going to have to retrieve that information, or is that our property, or how does that work?
It does go to a cloud. I don't actually know what the parameters are on storage capability or duration. I can find that out for you.
Well, I'm just curious if that, if we're storing that information, let's say we store it for 5 or 10 years, and then there's a legal action, whether it's criminal or civil, do we have to provide that GPS information to the court, or is that our property?
If it exists, it would be discovered. I would assume, I'm not a lawyer.
I think it would have to go by your policy.
if you said our policy is we keep it on hand for a year, and then we don't have it, then
Yeah, I mean, if you write right into the policy that it gets overwritten or purged every 6 months, or maybe what you want to do is, for the sake of wear and tear on the vehicles, maybe you want to print the mileage logs for the trucks so you can keep track of how many miles, because one of the things that the GPS on the new highway trucks will do is it will actually keep track of the amount of material that comes out of the hopper as well. So that's a good thing to know. So maybe at the end of the year or at the end of the plow season each year, we may want to print some of that data and keep it in a truck file.
Well, I'd like to see at some point a policy from both the chief and the DPW on what we're going to do with that GPS information, how long we're going to retain it, if it's our property or if we have to make it, is it public? I mean, everything here in the town is supposed to be public property, right? Would a citizen have access to that information? I don't think so.
No, not for the police department or.
I don't think that's covered under public record necessarily, but I'm not a lawyer. I would get that ruling from the town attorney. And again, if we have a policy that it gets like our emails are public information, but if you have a policy that says your emails will be purged every 90 days except for what you put in folders, then it's purged every 90 days.
Well, I think we're going to need that sometime in the future. Okay.
Yep. And I'll have them draft something and then run it by a town attorney, just make sure that we're not running afoul of any right to know laws or, but yeah, I think that a written policy is important.
Okay.
Okay, facility use agreement.
Wait, are you going to?
Yeah, I would say,
Oh, you want
say, make a motion to have them go forward with both of these.
I'll second that.
Immediately?
Yes.
Yeah.
to immediately? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Facility use agreement. License agreement.
So we talked about this a little bit before because it's really come up because of the wedding reception requests for here, and serving alcohol in an open bar type of situation, which got me to call our insurance company to see what our coverage was, because our contract with Greater Wakefield Resource Center says that they can have like a champagne toast at a birthday party or a mimosa at a shower, but it's not an open bar kind of situation. It's limited. I understand they do have some bring your own BYOB birthday parties and stuff, but we have a contract with them to allow it. Our insurance company gave me the policy that I have put before you because they have constraints. They want, if you're going to have an open bar, they want a licensed, certified bartender. There's constraints, and I don't know that you are all in favor of open bars at town buildings anyway. It's your, I think we want to make the building as available as possible, but then also keep the citizenry as safe as possible. So
I would say if the insurance is not in favor of that, we should not allow it upstairs in the town hall.
Yeah, my concern is that the town this is the central hub for the town and everything. You get people, you can't control everything everybody does. They could be, after they start drinking, even for like a wedding reception, people are gonna go, if it's cold out or whatever, they're gonna go in the bathroom and try, hiding a cigarette or something, and then next thing you know, I think it's just not a good, I don't think it's a good practice myself. I mean, the wedding, that'd be kind of neat to see a wedding up there or something, but a reception where they're serving alcohol, I'm nervous about it myself.
I concur with that. I don't think we should do it.
So should we adopt this facility license agreement?
no, because that allows for a licensed open bar.
Yeah.
So if you want, what I'll do is I will rewrite a facility use agreement that kind of lays that out. The other thing that we probably should address at the same time is we don't have a custodian. So the biggest problem for us is, who's going to go in here, open it up, lock it up.
Yeah.
We have problems, issues with the boards. Pretty much after most meetings, lights are left on, doors are left unlocked. Again, I want to see the most people possible use our building because it's gorgeous and it has great things here, Scamp, but when Scamp was here last year, somebody blocked open the downstairs lower door, which would only allow people in, but animals and, you know, there just needs to be supervision of underage children in here, because I don't want somebody to fall down the stairs and not know how they fell down the stairs.
The other thing is we have businesses in town that do these type of things, and I really don't want to compete with businesses, you know, doing their functions as well. So
Wolfboro has that policy. They don't allow like wedding receptions in their Great Hall because it takes away from the people who do catering. And so let me work on that a little more and carve some of that out and put it before you again with a draft, and we'll see what we can get with that.
Okay.
Okay. Next one is Barnum Road.
So Mr. Rowe had made a request to the board to have you guys go out with the DPW director and AWA, DES, UNH Stormwater, all the stakeholders, and walk Bonnyman Road and come up with a 2 or 3 year plan up to and including potentially taking over toll, moving the bottom part of Bonnyman from Bonnyman, giving that up and taking over Toll Farm, which was laid out, I think, as a 40-foot road. Bonnyman actually was laid out as a 3-rod road at one time, which I believe is 49 and a half feet, 16 and a half feet per rod. So I don't know that Bonnyman is that wide anymore or ever was, but that was, I think, in the 1830s. So you have not set that appointment. I have been unable to come up with a date that you're all available. So I guess we need to decide what we're doing with Mr. Rowe's request.
I think first off, we've got to have our new DPW director go out and look at the road. That road has been walked by selectmen and the DPW director in the last 1.5 years, and because I was one of them at the time, and DES was there, Iowa was there, and DES came up with what they would agree with, not necessarily what anybody there wanted to do, but only what they would approve. And they didn't, for some reason, didn't want to do that. So as far as I'm concerned, now we should let our DPW director, he's new, and he can go out and look it over and see what he thinks. That's just what I feel.
I think that's a good plan. My understanding is this town has been there numerous times in the past.
Yeah.
I know it's an unresolved issue, but we've just hired a brand new director. I think Brock should go out there and give us his advice.
Yep.
I mean, none of us are experts on this road maintenance, so I think we have to hear from Brock before we should proceed any further.
Good idea. Good plan. We'll have him go out and look. Yes, Mr. Rowe.
I think part of the confusion is that when New Hampshire DES went out and looked with the selectmen at the time, okay, they were looking at Mr. Thomas's water problem, all right? That is about this much of the problem that we want to look at when we get everybody out there to look at it. It starts at 153, okay, goes around the corner to the boat ramp, goes all the way down along the lake, around Mr. Thomas's corner, and up the hill to where Point Road and Toll Farm Road come together.
Right. But the thing is, we have a new DPW director now. We would like him to look at it. I mean, we've had 2 DPW directors that have been out there. We would like him to look at it, and then we'll go from there from what he
What
has
is it he's
determined.
looking for?
To see what can be done to make the road better, or what DES will allow us to do, or whatever.
What issues he sees.
And also because he'll be plowing that road.
Okay, so he's gonna look at the whole road. by himself or with,
he probably would
I
bring
would-
one of the
I would-
workers with him.
I would like to be there with him and point out our concerns, okay? And then he can address them or decide that they're not concerns. I mean,
I tell you, I'd rather have him make the investigation by himself and form his own conclusions before he has any input. He can meet with you guys after the fact, but we want him to go out there and look at it without a lot of input or a lot of influence, and then he can meet with you.
okay,
With you.
has he got a copy of my letter?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, sir?
You
Your name?
mentioned the numerous visits that you've been
What's
out
your
there.
name, please?
Larry Moody, Bonneman Road.
Yep.
Has Mr. Wallace been out there yet?
No, I have not been out there.
I didn't think so, because I've asked numerous times when I was here for other issues.
But the problem is, Mr. Moody, I could go up there and I'm not an engineer and I could give you wrong information or false information. We need to have somebody up there that knows what they're talking about.
I agree with, and my request was for, not just you, but I couldn't even get the previous DPW guy to go there.
I understand.
Well, I mean, it's over and over. I can't get answers from an email, nothing. Not even a, okay, we received it, we're working on it.
Well, now you know what we're gonna do. We're going to send DPW director. And he'll report on it.
It wouldn't do any good for me to go up there, but I've driven it in my Model T about 20 times.
Yeah.
I know that road very well. But it's not gonna do me any good to go up there and look at it unless we have our highway department do it
Oh,
first.
I
So-
absolutely agree he should.
So
do
I
it.
know the road, I'm familiar with it, I live in East Wakefield, I live on Pine River Pond, I know the road, but it doesn't do us any good to go there first. We want
Right.
our our highway department to go there first, and then give us input.
I'd also
Yes,
like to
ma'am?
clarify what Kelley said about that court case. There was a court case on that, and there was no three-rod road that was laid out at Bonneman Road. The court case determined it was not laid out there.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am?
I'm Shirley McCormick, Wyman Road. Neil's bringing up about some areas to look into. Okay, they're not visual from the road. They're visual from the lake. Whoever goes down to look at the road needs to go on some docks, some of the beaches. Because I myself are going to have a sinkhole in front of my place because I have 36 rocks from under the road that are in the water now. Every time a construction vehicle comes through, it sinks the road and a boulder comes out of the road and drops into the lake. Beginning 2 years ago, I had talked to somebody in the town and I had 12 rocks and 36 rocks, boulders that are coming out from underneath the road. Okay, so it can't just be a visual from the road. It has to be a visual from docks and everything else.
I understand that issue, but we
Yeah.
don't have permission to go
No,
on
but I
anybody's
need,
property.
no, whoever goes out needs to understand that, direct them to go to some of the docks and look at the banking of the erosion.
But,
because-
ma'am, we can't do that unless we have
We're
written
not gonna
permission
see
to
it.
go
If
on.
we're
You're not
there-
gonna see the
What's
situation.
that?
You can if we're there.
You're not gonna see the
No,
situation.
no, we
Well, you
can't.
can with three of us at least.
Okay, but we can't go out to various
No, I'm just
docks
saying,
and walk the
suggest-
beach unless we
I'm
have
just
permission.
suggesting whoever goes out to ask them to go down on some of the docks and look at, my dock is out there, I have a beach out there, you can go down my staircase and you can look at the banking and see where there's a hole.
No, I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
if we're gonna have a town employee go on private
Yeah, but
property,
he needs to
we need
understand.
written permission to go on the various docks and
Yeah.
land that you're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
but if he comes out with a report saying he can't do anything, something's going to happen eventually on where my property is, where that road is sinking in. And it doesn't look much like any damage much on the road. It's all in the banking where the rocks are coming out from the road. Nothing holding that car up eventually.
I have faith in a DPW director. He knows what he's doing. He's been in this business how many years?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he knows exactly what he needs to be looking for.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have a time frame for that?
Well, he should, it should be when he can work it in, but it should be before, you know, bad weather arrives and so on and so forth. I'm sure he probably will get right into it.
But again, when he goes out there, unless he has permission, he's gonna be on the road.
Right.
We don't want him going down
No.
on private property unless we have somebody there that says the owner of the property, or a letter saying.
If we knew when it was coming, okay,
Yeah.
we'd be there and say, this is the stairs, help yourself.
I think the first
This is
thing
what
we
you
wanna
want.
do is look at the road. After that, we can look at more issues. But we
Right.
start with the road, which we have permission to be on,
Fine.
okay?
Yep.
Okay, new business. L-chip stewardship plan.
So, I think I've talked to you guys before about the L-chip window project. In order to get reimbursed, and we've paid the first installment of a third for the window project. They will be here on Monday, October 1st, to start taking windows out and take them to their refurbisher and have them rebuilt. So we need a stewardship plan, and we also need to adopt, you'll see the next item is to adopt the Land Trust Alliance's standards and procedures. So I have provided you with those standards and practices. I've read them, they're very standard. This is just for you guys each to review. And then the stewardship plan, I kept it really simple. I'm not sure for sure because L-chip has not gotten back to me yet whether this will suffice as a stewardship plan, but I think it's a start. And I'd like you guys to adopt it. If we have to punch it up some, we can, but at least it's something to start with for the stewardship.
Is this time sensitive? Is this something that I could take a look at this over the next
Absolutely.
meeting?
Obviously, we can't get a reimbursement, but I mean, they're good for the money.
Okay.
So, I don't know if you were here when we got that L-chip grant, because I wasn't here either. It was before me. It's for, I believe, $47,704, and we are $48,714, and we are paying we have a matching 50%, so we pay $24,408, and they pay $24,408. Again, we can't. The only thing not having this done does, he said we're good to go ahead with the project. Our scope is good. All the other paperwork we needed to get in, I got in. It's just to adopt the stewardship plan going forward with the asset, and then the Land Trust Alliance's standards and practices. So,
But Kelly, what are we committing the town to if we sign this stewardship plan?
basically taking care of the asset that they're helping us, and it's not just the windows. The stewardship plan includes the whole building, and they pinged me back with some very specific language about what we're going to do to maintain the building. And I think my disconnect with that is I don't think anybody foresees wanting to let this building fall down around our ears, but then there's also funding limits on what we can do. So I want to be realistic about, we don't have a building custodian, we don't have a building and grounds person. So our DPW department is the one that comes and fixes toilets and windows, and so I think I want to be honest with them that we're going to check the windows and review them, and we're going to paint them, and we're going to fix them if they break. We're going to file insurance claims if something is damaged, but I don't want to promise to bring money to bear that we don't have. So.
Didn't the town vote to accept this?
Yes,
Okay.
it was a warrant article.
Yes.
And it expires on December 31st, so
Right.
we have
So
the
we have
constraint of trying to get the window, and so you got a Moose Plate grant, I believe in 2015, that was finished in 16 to do half of the windows, and it was for a similar amount of money, $48,000. Somebody, and I'm not making an excuse, it was just before my time, I don't really have a good feel for who, but somebody got a price of $48,814 to do the rest. When I had the same window company that did the first set of windows come out, he said the price was $92,000. So we don't have enough money to do the rest of the windows. So I went back to LCHIP and I said, is it okay if I just ask the vendor to do as many as he can for the 48,000? And he said, absolutely. So we're getting about half of the half we thought were left. And that's partly because the window vendor explained it to me. This would be considered 4 windows. We consider it 1 window, but each of these is a window and the rounded part at the top is a window. So when we're looking at half the windows, and this one, by the way, has been done, but when we're looking at the windows, and also we have 3 windows in this building that are vinyl. They have to be totally taken out and rebuilt as wooden, historically correct windows. And that's more expensive than just taking a wooden window and doing a template and redoing it. So there were, again, it came back at 92,000. We can do about half of what's left for the 48,000.
So where would those windows be done? Upstairs, or have these been done? That looks like vinyl.
No, that one's vinyl.
Yeah, that one's
That's
vinyl.
one of the vinyl ones. I'm not sure about this one. Basically what they're finishing is this floor and a little bit of the back of the Opera House, like where the stage is, which is another constraint because some of those windows were blocked up from the inside, so they can only be accessed from the outside now, which it needs a lift. And so basically what will be left is the tippy top floor. And if you look up there, if you go around to the back of the building and you look up at there, there's a lot of rot up there as well. So it's, when we get to those windows, part of the expense, I believe we're going to leave about $52,000 worth of windows to be done. You'll see that it's not just doing the windows. When they take the windows out, they're going to have to kind of fix all the rot so that there's something to put the window back into.
Okay. Do you need a motion on this to accept this?
Yes, we should.
I do, but if you want more time.
No, I just briefed, I was just briefing
It's
through the meeting. Yeah.
It's just about the reimbursement, and like I said, they're good
Okay.
for the money.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Land Trust Alliance resolution. There's two documents, right?
Right.
So
The
you should
the
read,
LCHIP
resolution.
and the board resolution.
so you should read the resolution into the record and then make the motion, and then the stewardship, you can just make the motion. This is an original for your signature if you'd like it.
Okay.
These are both originals.
The Land Trust Alliance requires that all land trust members adopt land trust standards and practices as their guiding principles. Some public or private funders also ask for such a statement. Here is the board resolution. Whereas the town of Wakefield has reviewed the land trust standards and practices. The standards, first published by the Land Trust Allegiance in 1989 and with the most recent revision effective February 3rd, 2017. And whereas the town of Wakefield agrees that the standards are the ethical and technical guidelines for the responsible operation of a land trust. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen of the town of Wakefield hereby adopts and commits to implementing the standards as guidelines for the organization's operation. Adopted this whatever day of September. Okay, so these aren't the originals, right?
Yeah,
They can be.
We can.
They can be.
Yes.
Okay. Was that seconded? Did you second
I'll
that?
second that.
You moved it.
You
Oh, I
moved
moved
it.
it. You have to second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, or was that unanimous?
Unanimous.
Oh, wait a minute, can you write in the date?
Think.
Okay.
Got a pen.
Sorry. Yeah, cool.
State aid bridge program, Marsh and North Old Farms Road.
So I'm not, you and Denny were not available at the bridge meeting, but the engineer did a presentation, and part of the first step in the kind of funding, what's going to happen with the bridges going forward, is to put 2 more bridges on the state aid bridge program. So we have the request for that. if you would sign it. So just to recap, for Denny, the Canal Street Bridge that goes to Acton, Maine, we made a request to put that on May 31st.
Okay.
And also the Maple Street Bridge that's closed was also applied for at the same time on May 31st. We haven't heard back from them on those two yet. And part of the funding bridge management plan is to also put these in. Now again, when they come up, we don't have to accept the money if we have a windfall and we can do it ourselves. If we choose to repair them rather than totally replace, there'll be many opportunities going along to have both the budget committee and the taxpayers weigh in on it. But if we put ourselves on the list now, then we'll have more options for funding, including the 80%.
So when we add these two, what's the total number of bridges we have on that list?
It'll be 4 out of 7.
Out of the 7. And the document I read said it'd be like $1 million for the town on all 7, is that right? So what was that? There was about 5 scenarios that added up to about $1 million on each. How many bridges?
Right. Over 12 years.
How many bridges were in those?
7.
7, okay.
7.
And so now we're gonna have 4 out of the 7 with this.
In the stated bridge program,
Okay.
yes. But again, there's options along the way. There's some scenarios where we go it alone and pay 100% of a refurb rather
Yeah.
than a replacement.
I've read all of
That
it.
isn't
Yeah.
totally,
I know.
it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But a refurb only gets you maybe 10 or 15 years. A replacement gets you 25 to 30.
Okay.
There's many, many options going forward. One of the pieces that this does require, though, and we'll have this conversation, I'm sure, with the budget committee and going forward, is to up the amount going into the capital reserve funds for bridge work from, I think we did 10,000 for the last 3 years, and last year we did 25,000. We would have to up that to 120,000, or we would have to borrow very soon.
Yeah, I saw that number of 120. When do we plan to add the last 3 bridges so we have the total of 7, or what's?
So one of the bridges was only built in 2013. The maintenance on that is just to pressure wash it. So the biggest thing that damages bridges obviously is sand and salt.
Yeah.
And not maintaining them. And so that bridge, the other Union Bridge, also on Maple Street,
Bridge
Bridge Street.
Yep.
That one was just built in 2013. So their recommendation for that is to not even put it in the program yet.
It's just to clean it.
To clean it.
Okay.
But that's something that we need to talk to Brock about, making sure is in his operating budget. If he doesn't own a pressure washer that can do it out there, to get one, and just similar to what we need to do for paving projects, rather than repaving everything. 5 years out from a repaving, we need to go and crack seal it, and 7 years out, we need to skim. We need to have this maintenance plan so that we're not replacing these very expensive assets. Because other than our human resources, clearly the roads and the bridges are our most expensive asset, and we haven't done anything for planning.
No.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for Oswald Farm Road and Marsh Road for,
Inclusion.
yeah,
Inclusion
as
under
a
the,
share of the cost for replacing, rehabilitating bridge number North Old Farm Road and Marsh Road.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is it the 26th, Ben?
It is the 26th.
Make sure I get it right this time.
So the next piece of the bridge management program was to apply for an HMPG grant from Homeland Security Emergency Management under the pass-through FEMA money. I think it's one of the things we can do for the eventual removal and replacement of the Maple Street Bridge. And our engineers have prepared a package for the application. It is due Friday the 28th. So we do have a time constraint. He has prepared this whole thing for my signature. So I think you guys are going to have to authorize me, because he printed it up for mine, and there was not 3 places. If you want, I have 2 originals if you guys want to take a quick look at it. This would lock us into both the removal and replacement. But if we get this grant, the FEMA grant is a 75-25. The state aid bridge program is an 80-20 split. So if we got the HMPG grant, then that potentially will move us up in the state aid bridge program for that bridge, because the state loves that FEMA would be willing to pay 75%. So then they would only pay 80% of our 25%, and we'd be down to like 5%. So if we're successful, and it is a competitive grant program, what happens is every time there's an emergency, a declared emergency in the state of New Hampshire, a certain percentage of the loss goes into a fund, and those become HMP, hazard mitigation grants. And again, it's competitive, but every time there's a disaster, there's more HMPG money available. So
You said you actually move up normally and be pushed back.
yeah, we have a lot of things in our favor because that bridge is closed, because it's in imminent danger of falling into the, there's a lot of things that make this an attractive project for them.
Again, Kelley, because I'm kind of new here, what are we committing the town to, financially? Do we have any obligation by you signing?
No, I mean, if you got awarded, you could always turn it down.
But so there's no financial implication here, other than we're applying for a grant?
Right. Right. This is just the application for the grant. This is not signing that we are accepting a grant.
Okay.
So you would have to make a motion to authorize me to sign the application.
I make a, yep, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And they did a good, that they're, when they came in and did that meeting with us that day, they did a great job on
I
it.
heard it.
I think,
Yeah.
It was very, very good
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah, and they made an invitation to you and Howie, because you know finance so well. If you want to go to make an appointment to go to their office, because those are interactive spreadsheets
Yeah.
that are very complicated, but you can.
Howie talked to me about that, so we're going to go up to Conway and take a look at them one of these days.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. He could run it so that if you only put 60,000 in the capital reserve fund, you have to borrow. If you put 100 in, so you can see it extrapolated out, and it's it's visual, so it's.
Yeah, and we should see that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, and it'll be an important piece to bring to the budget committee as well, because I think some of the people who aren't as financially sophisticated, I couldn't have done that spreadsheet in a million years, but it's very powerful when you look at it financially.
Yeah, Howie and I will do that before budget season gets underway.
Good. HRV and Snowmobile Registration Agency. Did we have this come before us last year?
Yes, Valerie brought it before you, and Selectman Avalani and Selectman Edwards were not in favor of it because they believed that it could detract from other business. It would take business away from some of the smaller stores, maybe in East Wakefield, that do this work. Val said she checked with those people, and that wasn't the case. Mr. Edwards said it was. She has a new board. She has put it before you again.
What kind of revenue does the town receive for an application? What do we get, a couple dollars, or what do we get?
It's not much even for business.
It's not much.
I don't know. I don't honestly know the answer to that. I wouldn't even want to guess.
I think you're on it though. I don't think it's very much. It's just like doing boat registration.
I don't even know what an HRV costs to register. Is it by like gross vehicle weight, like a car, or?
I mean, if we're already doing cars and we're doing boats, I don't see why we shouldn't do this.
I think she's asking as a convenience, so that when a person comes in, they bring their cars, their motorcycle, their boat, their blah, blah,
Can they do it online in the system if they wanted to renew it?
I don't honestly know the answer to that
Oh,
either.
sorry to catch you off guard, but
It's a good question. I'm assuming because you can do motor vehicles, but I don't know if she sends out a letter, because like a lot of the boats are seasonal.
Right.
Yeah,
Residents, so they might not always do their boat here.
yeah.
So I'm not sure if OHRVs would be similar to the boats where it could be seasonal, so she doesn't send a letter and it's just vehicles, but.
It'd be nice to know if they could do it online too, as well.
Well, I'm in favor of allowing Valerie to
Might as well.
register those vehicles in town.
I was just reading this over to see if it did say anything about online.
I read that and I didn't see it.
You didn't see it?
No.
No.
Okay.
Do you want to wait to vote on it until you know that answer to that question, or?
No.
No, I'm in
No.
favor of it. I just wanted to.
I was
No,
curious,
it's possible.
Oh,
but it's not gonna change my opinion.
Okay. I can find out. I will let you know at the next meeting, either
Okay.
way.
So, you made a motion?
I did.
Second,
I'm going to mention that my signature signed because there's only one line here.
I authorize the chair to sign. Motion to authorize the chair to sign.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So I have to sign it under owner?
Yes.
Well,
What are you gonna buy?
Thanks for your purchase.
9/26.
Bill's gonna go out and order one, right?
Okay. Abatement of interest on map 34, lot 4. Okay, that's,
So this was a contractual agreement on a payment plan, and this was our agreement, and he should pay off his contract within 1 or 2 payments, and he's paying every other week, so I want to make sure that the abatement is in place for when he pays it off, and we have collected to date $8,500
that we wouldn't have collected otherwise.
that we have not
Good.
collected in
What, every
years.
other Monday he's making a payment? Was that the agreement I looked?
Uh-huh.
I think I looked at,
Yeah.
okay.
And just so you know, the deed letters went out, I think last Friday. I think the deed date will be October 20th. There was one straggler, so it'll have a different date, but the deed date will be October 22nd. So I anticipate that anybody who wanted to make a payment plan with the Board of Selectmen. So the difference between a payment plan with the tax collector is that you can pay just the deed year by October 22nd. If you wanted to pay off all 3 years and have an abatement of your interest and penalties over that 3 years, then you would make a contract with the Board of Selectmen, and I will have to have those in. Our letters went out so that I can bring them to you the meeting before that drop dead deed date. Drop dead deed date.
Mhm.
So do we have to vote on this abatement?
Yes.
Yes.
And the abatement was,
Okay. I make a motion that we adopt the abatement on map 34, lot 40 as described.
Second.
any discussion, or we all set with that?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Connie, you won't be able to use your stamp.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Can't you just stamp all 3 pages?
Or stamp all the pages.
Stamp all.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Okay. Sorry.
And
As long
you
as
can
it doesn't
read
get
it if I
filed with the
stamp it.
registry. Okay.
Only 2.
Is it only 2?
Yeah.
It's only 2 on that.
So all 3 of us have to sign this?
Yes, please.
Oh. All right, nice try.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you for waiting so patiently. Cemetery Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. $3,040. Do you want to explain anything about that?
You want to?
No. We can read this, it's pretty pretty, but you said you wanted to come.
I can explain what it is if everybody
Okay.
doesn't.
Why don't you?
Okay. I'm Phil Twombley, Chairman of the Cemetery Trustees. About the first part of, maybe the middle part of July, I was notified that a cemetery on Route 153, just past the Wakefield corner, going down towards Province Lake on the left-hand side, the wall had started to dip over.
I saw it every day and went by it.
Yeah, so cemetery trustees went and looked at it, and we decided we needed to fix it right away. So we asked 2 contractors to come out and give us a bid for it. We only got 1 bid, and it was awarded on, we had a meeting on September, I'm thinking September 9th, I think. We had a meeting, and it was awarded to Eddie Nason, 10 Corporation from Brookfield. And he started the next week, and he gave us a quote of $30,040. $3,040. So, and he's completed it, and it looks great. If you've gone by it, it looks nice.
It looks very nice. He's got straw over the grass.
He's got grass.
He planted it.
He replanted seed, and he put hay over the grass. It looks nice.
Looks nice.
Now, this capital reserve fund, I don't know for those, maybe a little history. Way back in 2008, there was a warrant article that was presented and passed by the vote of the people of town to put in $20,000 to start out this fund with. And they said that we could use this fund for any cemetery in Wakefield. So,
Great.
so that's what we're doing. And we add to this fund by warrant articles periodically every year. And I think this year we're going to try to add another $5,000 to this fund.
Great.
Well, just one question. Some of the cemeteries in town have a perpetual care fund that the trustee, the trust fund maintains.
Right.
And some of them have a clause that pertains to the entire cemetery. If that was the case, would you use that money first, or would you always go after that?
We cannot use that money.
You can't use the capital, but if there was profit after that, would you ever go after that, or would you ever?
We get money from the trustees of the trust fund every year from the interest.
Yeah.
That interest is turned over to the town, goes into the general fund.
Yeah.
But we can't.
You can't go after the principal.
Principal at all.
But you're just using all the interest you earn and then supplementing it with this, right? This warrant article?
Yeah, this warrant article is specifically
For the repair?
Tree removal.
Okay. Good.
Wall removal.
Yeah.
Maintain the roads in the cemetery.
If a tree came down or whatever.
Which perpetual care doesn't handle.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Any questions?
Oh,
Good job.
thank you.
Can you make a motion to pay this amount?
I make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's a lot of chairs and one roof, isn't it?
I've got to put the date, 9/26. Okay. Now, Mr. Baxter, RE Heritage Commission membership. You're gonna have to help me a little bit. I have a hard time reading this.
Yeah.
I'll try to read it the best I can. It says, I, Robert Baxter, filled out and filed an application as an alternate for the Heritage Commission 6 months past. They have yet to respond by letter or email opening
One way or another.
one way or another. I have had over 55 years of
Immersion.
Immersion in history. My father studied, and do you want to read this?
Can you read it, Kelley?
You
My
read
father
it,
studied.
please.
I must have more handwriting. My father studied and taught U.S. history. My mother's family are Sanborns. A long family investment over 168 years of Aboriginal excavation of village sites. Personally, I have pieces of this and other historical interests in museums around the world. My experience in family growing up allowed me to learn local architectural craft as well as the 18th century stone wall construction. This led me to a successful career in building, remodeling, and renovation. While studying in school, I was given individual study in historical research. This allowed me to become knowledgeable in ephemera, and then photography, opening cobblestone antiques and trading in 1978. It shows people and dealers seek out my ability to be historically accurate when they ask to identify or appraise items. On any given day, I am doing historical research 4 to 5 hours. The lack of response from the Heritage Commission has made the decision to sell our collection of local mill equipment and items easier. They have been sold to parties in the Midwest. The records of Wakefield, New Hampshire Cemetery, 1735 through the Civil War, has been sold to a person in Pennsylvania. Respectfully, Robert Baxter, 21 Maple Street, Union, New Hampshire. P.S. One additional item is currently in the Freight House.
We as selectmen have nothing to do with the Heritage Commission as far as, the only thing we do is we appoint, but they recommend. I was under the impression that you were going to get a letter.
The letter came the following day.
Oh.
The post office stopped delivering mail on Maple Street to us for a month.
Because they can't turn around because of the bridge being closed and the neighbors parking in the middle of the road.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we have nothing to say about that one way or another. We take the recommendation and we appoint people, but we can't tell them who they need to appoint.
Actually, they themselves wrote in a video that the state requires that you be experienced and most likely, possibly, if you can get it, a degree in history. He has more historical experience than any of the people on that board, but he was turned down.
So this was more just to let us know what's
Yes.
going on. You didn't want, like...
I didn't want any action, it's
No.
just to
All
let
right, we just don't want you to
town
walk away
become aware
confused,
of
like,
it.
We're more confused, more of the fact that they made it very clear that they're supposed to have an education in history, and they admitted they don't have that history. He does, and they turned him down, and that concerns us. And this wasn't we both work in a business that does history every day, all day, 24/7. We're both got degrees in it, and
I don't know what to tell you, but...
actually, we want it documented.
Okay. That's good. Yep. And now the selection of engineers.
Thanks for attending.
Yes.
We attend all of the meetings.
Yes, we do. Yep.
So this is the, so we don't see what email Mr. Baxter sent to Kleinfelder. Kleinfelder was one of the engineer firms that applied and was not the successfully chosen engineer. So all we're seeing is the response that Kleinfelder, the engineer from Kleinfelder, sent back to Mr. Baxter.
Okay.
I don't know what we can do about it. We've already made our decision, and we interviewed all of them. They all came, and
You actually interviewed the top 3.
right.
Yeah.
So this wasn't one of the top 3. It
don't
doesn't
remember.
sound familiar.
I don't
The other
think so.
ones that built the Bridge Street Bridge.
Excuse me?
They're the ones that built the bridge.
They actually took over the company that built the Bridge Street Bridge.
Okay.
They weren't, it was a different company then, they took them over.
Well, thank you for your letter, and it says, and hope they are receptive to your input with selected firm. And, you know,
Just for your
Yeah. Rose,
files.
in the future,
Okay.
could you type his letters?
Believe it or not, he is better at it than I am. One of the, if you know anything about people that do this type of work,
I got it.
terrible.
very well worded, no doubt about it.
We're great at history, but terrible at writing.
Yeah, same way. I think my handwriting's 10 times worse than
My
his.
grandfather was a doctor and did prescriptions, okay?
So there you go.
So that's where I learned.
Got it.
Thank you for your input. Now we have registration from Rebecca Champagne.
Resignation.
Resignation, what did I say?
You have a yeah.
I'm
She's
back in the
registering.
town clerk's business, I guess. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be a town of Wakefield, New Hampshire employee. I truly love Wakefield, and it has been an honor to be an employee. However, my health has become an obstacle for me to continue to work at this time. I have no choice but to respectfully resign from my deputy tax collector, assistant town clerk positions. Again, I thank you all for your kindness and understanding and for respecting my privacy. Rebecca Champagne.
I
So we,
make a motion that we accept with regret and sorry to hear about her resignation.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. New Hampshire DOT, unauthorized access on Route 16. This
No,
kind of
153.
surprises, I mean 153.
Yep.
This surprised me. I guess I don't understand the whole thing. I don't understand why the state would not okay a driveway there.
Because there's a subdivision that already gave it access from another town road.
Okay.
And this is the second notice. They actually,
Yeah, it says second notice.
well, and you saw the first notice because I put it
Yeah.
on the agenda in April or
Yeah.
May,
Yeah.
when we got it. So it's just informational for us. And I did send it to the DPW director.
Okay, good.
But it looks like they're not going to mess around with unlawful driveway cuts on state roads.
Yeah, it's curious because I drive past this home that's being constructed and, you know, within about a half a mile, there's got to be 15, 20 driveways and
Right.
and nobody else has been denied except this individual, who I happen to know. But the DPW has said that when they made that subdivision, they have access onto the road from the subdivision, which is one road going on to 153. So it's illegal for them to have driveways. It doesn't look fair to me. I'm not going to question it. But
Doesn't
all the
seem to
neighbors
me,
have
yeah.
driveways and he can't have one. It's like, anyways.
Right.
But there was an RSA that they quoted, and they have a perfect legal right to deny him that driveway.
Yeah.
It just, to a passerby, it doesn't look fair, that's all.
Sometimes it's just also because there's a moratorium on that stretch of the road. Sometimes it's because they did it without permission and
Yeah.
they are sticklers about that.
So I read the letter from the state, and they quoted the RSA and the position on it. And, I mean, it's not up to us to fight that, but to the casual bypasser, it doesn't look fair
No, I
that
didn't think so
he
either.
can't have a driveway and all of his neighbors have one. So,
But there's nothing we can do.
no,
about that.
absolutely not.
Okay, now we have a couple comments limited to 3 minutes. Mr. Rowe.
Just for clarification purposes, could the board and Kelley please explain to me the process that's going to be used to, one, notify the road agent, collect his report, and get a copy of that report to me prior to the next meeting?
I don't know about getting a copy of it to you, but he will go through Kelley. Kelley will tell him what we decided here, and then he will go up there at when he can work it into his schedule. But as far as sending him a report,
I don't think we can send out a report until we've had a chance to review it with the
And
highway
if he
authority.
just, and if he tries to get AWA or DES or UNH Stormwater or anybody else, I don't know that they would even meet before the next meeting, let alone have any kind of
Right.
report ready.
yeah, no, they wouldn't. They're busy. They're really right out straight at the moment, trying to get everything done before.
Yeah, they're working down
snowfall.
on Waterman Road with Toll Farm Association.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of convenient, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
inconvenient.
Yeah. So we will try our best and do what we can, and, but we will wait until we get the report from Brock.
What is considered reasonable from the Board of Selectmen's viewpoint?
Well,
2
there-
weeks?
Can I
Another
answer
month?
that? I just met
6
Brock
months?
today. And he's brand new.
I understand.
He's still looking for his desk. So if he had been there 6 months, I think we could give you an answer and say, you know, this is only going to take 2-3 weeks, but we got 2 brand new trucks coming in. He's just learning his way around. And until we talk to him, I don't want to give you a number because we have to ask him when he has time because he's brand new on the job.
You're
So-
also asking for a 2 or 3 year plan on a mile-long road with 245 homes.
It's-
That can't be
no,
done in 2
no,
weeks.
Just, if you read the email, all right, it's not a mile long, okay? It's less than a half a mile long.
And you
It's
want
not-
a 2 or 3
it's-
year plan for
it's
half
not-
a mile road.
Because I thought that AWA was gonna get grants. I thought that the state of New Hampshire was gonna provide grants. I thought that if we addressed the whole road, okay, with all the problems and get everybody involved from the get-go, they could come up with a plan rather than a patch here and a patch there and go, we're done. All right, and you'd have something at the end that was useful to everybody.
But even when we try to do a piece at a time, if the abutters won't provide easements, either maintenance or construction easements, I mean, we had this conversation in July or August at a selectmen's meeting, and we went through all the work with AWA and had a grant and had labor.
Don't.
Excuse me, and had it, and we could not get the easements then for that work. And so I don't see that Mr. Mitchell will be able to put this all together in 2 weeks, but certainly if you give him a deadline of 2 weeks, that's
Yeah.
my guess.
I don't think we should do that,
The-
because of what all Denny just said. We shouldn't give him a timeline on this.
The thing that you just brought up, Kelly, okay, was the Mr. Thomas property, is that correct?
No, I believe it was Lightizer.
Well, that's
and
yours.
And it needed an easement
Yeah.
from both
Yeah.
Lightizer and
Well, that-
Moody.
That's the same property. Mr. Thomas lived there, he died, he gave the property to his daughter, Becky and Jeff, okay? Mr. Moody is the neighbor,
I'm the other neighbor.
and she's the other neighbor.
Right, and
Okay.
they refused to give us easements.
No, the deal was, back in July, because I was standing there, all right, is that they were gonna get together, come up with a proposed plan, present it to the landowners ahead of time, not ramrod the thing through at the last minute and say, you got 90 days to sign this or you're gonna lose the money.
We showed them what DES would allow. I don't know what else we can do. We can come up with all the plans, and this is the conversation we had at the last selectmen's meeting. We know that that road needs to be dug up and redrained. DES is never going to allow us to dig 3 feet, 1.5 inches from the water and redrain that road.
Says who?
Says DES. They've already weighed in on that.
Who in DES?
Sally Sewell, Linda Shire, and I don't remember the gentleman's name from UNH Stormwater. They've looked at this. They came up with a plan that they could give us grant money for.
Okay, that's on Mr. Thomas on the 90-degree corner, okay? We're talking about from 153 all the way down the road, around that corner, and up the hill to Point Road. Okay, how it's disturbing the lake, what it's doing to the quality of the water. the fact that the road is pitched in the wrong direction. It pitches all the water to the lake instead of away from the lake.
2 weeks. Just my opinion, I'm not a DPW director, but
I don't think he's got to come up with a plan, but I'd like to see what he's going to present so that at the next meeting, we can be prepared to ask questions about it.
Okay, we will give it to him, and he will do it, and his name will be on the agenda when he gives us his report. And then you'll know by being on the agenda. You can check the agenda, and you'll know to come in. Okay, that's all we can do.
I check the agenda on a Monday, okay, and prepare for a Wednesday meeting based on something that I haven't seen anything about. Thank you very much. That's a lot of help.
You're very welcome. We've discussed this long enough.
Okay, I have a question. Is it gonna, there's 2 school buses that come down that road, right by my place, where I have the sinkholes starting to form. Okay? Every time one of those big construction trucks come by, okay, it weakens the road. Is it gonna take a school bus, a construction truck, anybody's personal vehicle to get involved, that sinkhole start and put them in the lake and kill somebody? Is that gonna wake somebody up that this part of the road is a serious matter? That road is sinking. There's nothing under there to hold it. Okay?
Is it posted?
No, it's in front of my house.
Is the road posted?
I'm at that
For
sharp corner,
Yeah, for Wake.
right on Bonnyman Road. I'm at the sharp corner, that's why.
So that's why we need to get, if he's gonna go up there, and if he suggests that we put a
But
weight
it
restriction
can't
on the
be
road.
like 10 days from now, it
No.
should be yesterday.
Okay,
Okay, because every time a truck, that road is not made for heavy equipment whatsoever.
well, that's why we need to have him go up,
Okay.
and he can
Now,
request
this is
us,
2
can I finish
years
for a
now
second?
that
Can I
these
finish for a
rocks have
second?
been falling, and they were
All right.
notified 2 years ago.
Okay, never
Is
mind.
it gonna take
Ma'am?
somebody to have an accident? and
No, we
get
don't
killed?
want that, and nobody wants that, so,
Okay,
All
nobody wants it, but it's gonna happen.
okay.
It's gonna happen. Okay. I'm out there trying to say, well, stuff the rocks back underneath the road. Yeah, I can do that. These rocks this big, boulders coming out of the road. There's nothing holding it up.
We're going to send him out, and we're gonna go from there.
But not like 10 days from now. It's like
Whatever it
needed to be
takes,
yesterday.
whatever it takes.
It's gonna take an accident to wake anybody up.
Any other, Ralph, did you want to continue?
Well, I share some concerns with the folks on Bonnyman Road, and I recall
And we do too.
an incident on Bonnyman Road probably 10 years ago where the town went out and replaced some culverts, which needed to be replaced. It was discovered that there should have been some paperwork involved with the state in place, and the state was gracious enough to work with the town of Wakefield, get everything straightened out. The Board of Selectmen have to take into account one of the town's goals of trying to keep our lakes and everything clean. Safety, public safety first. We have an incident on Pond Road, and I'm asking, almost begging for an action item from you folks tonight. I've been over in the last couple of storms, and the fix that the town came up with when the culvert came out is creating more problems than is discussed or shared with the board. Yesterday, you go over the property, you see the fines that was dumped into the position of the old culvert being sucked into the lake. It's a plume. So the berm that's been created by the fill is ponding on the uphill side, creating more wetlands, spilling over onto a butter's property. The culvert needs to be replaced, and we cannot deny now that we are willingly, or maybe not willingly, but certainly knowingly, damaging the quality of Lovell Lake. We raised an appropriate $30,000 to protect our waters, and we're knowingly allowing each and every rainstorm sediment going into Lovell Lake. It should be an action item. You should decide to have that culvert replaced. You may need to send an email to the state and request an emergency culvert replacement, but the town needs to protect the water quality at Level Lake. And it's not a long, drawn-out process. It would probably take a crew of 4 people and a machine about 8 hours to do everything and restore what was there and allows the water that's building up to flow into the lake cleanly. It's really a mess. And we spend a lot of money and effort in our pride, in our water bodies. We discussed it at the Conservation Commission level last night. When we're talking about turbidity and clean water and stuff like that, we know the importance this is to Wakefield. And I'm here personally begging you to do some action there, because who knows how many more rainstorms are going to happen. Who knows how much more cost it's going to be when the state says knowingly, willingly. I mean, it becomes willingly when you know about it for a period of time. Knowingly, unwillingly is like an immediate situation. It's really a problem. And I wouldn't beg you to take action if it wasn't a problem.
Do you know who took the culvert out?
No, I don't. I don't know who hit it. I can believe.
I don't know who took it out. I know what happened to it. Norman Butler, 63 Pond Road.
Mm-hmm. What happened to it?
Mother Nature took it out.
That's
It
not
was
true.
undermined.
It was on the side of the
Excuse me,
road.
I'm talking. Someone said that's not true.
Sorry.
It was undermined because there's a lot of traffic that's been driving over it. It was undermined, and when that started to get undermined, it sunk down into the road, and then it started buckling, and then it turned up, where it actually became sort of a danger to a truck or a car who might be trying to drive by it. I think that's when someone finally pulled it out. After that, I don't know what's happened to it, other than someone brought some gravel in. I think it's a great fix. It's a great fix. Admit that it's been maintained, which it has been. We've had witness after witness here saying it's been maintained, and then it becomes a Class 5. And then we can talk about making it a Summers Cottage Road after.
It's not a Class 5.
It's not a Class 5.
Why not? It doesn't, the RSA says it doesn't necessarily matter. The condition of the road, or how wide it is, or anything like that. It's a Class 5 road because of the way it's been used and been used historically, and the fact that it's been maintained. That's very clear.
It hasn't been maintained.
It has been maintained.
Why
We
did the road
had
agents,
20 people here explain to you how it has been maintained.
who did the maintaining? Because the road agent
We saw
that
the
we
town
used to
do the
have-
maintaining.
It hasn't been maintained by the town. The road agents say no.
What do we have to start doing? Taking pictures of the road, of the
I
town doing
guess you
that?
have to, because
Well,
the
I
road
thought you had to
agent
be
said no, it
dishonest.
hadn't been.
I'm very surprised.
Ralph,
I have witnessed the town trucks in there maintaining that road
So has
year
the
after
20
year
people
after
that were
year after
here.
year.
when
Last
was that?
2 weeks ago.
The last time I personally witnessed it was 2014, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't happened since then. I do believe in 2016 it was maintained just because of the York rake pits in the, again, preventative maintenance. You got to we discussed, or we heard discussion of a maintenance plan earlier. It's all it takes is the concern. I mean, I don't think you understand the urgency of each rainstorm. I don't think you understand the sediment that's building up and creating, it's choking
Right.
that
I
area.
understand about going into the lake. I understand that. I've
It's-
driven that road a number of times. I do not have a problem driving that road with my car.
But the culvert was there for a specific purpose, and they're all in place for specific
That's
purposes.
true.
That's to drain what would be a wetlands without drainage, and to keep water cleaner as it enters the lake. So that culvert had a purpose. The fix is creating more problems. I wish I could say that the fix is a good fix, but I can't say that because of the damage it's doing to the water body. And when the state understands that, the state would probably make the town of Wakefield pay much more than it would cost to replace the culvert.
Do we know who fixed it?
who brought the fill? I don't. Personally, I did not see that
The
happen.
DPW director put a pail of fill in it.
Yes.
And I mean, if it was all clean rock, that would be one thing, but it's gravel, so the fine.
If I'd known, I would have written him up for it. Frankly, he didn't get any permission and
He just did it.
the culvert, actually, according to both our DPW director at the time and his foreman, who went out and looked at it, it was either the last week of February or the first week of March, was clipped by a plow, and that's what yanked up the corner of it.
That's
We
very
don't
possible.
plow it.
Somebody
No,
plowed it.
I've seen fishermen out there with plow trucks, to just make
If it
their.
was hooked by a plow, it was hooked on one side. The
Right.
side that where most of the erosion has happened, where it really started to cave in, was on the stream side. That's where it undercut it. It was, I can't tell you what the plow did. It may have clipped it a little bit and made some ding in it or something, but I drive that every day. And I get a good sense of what's going on in there. And it wasn't a plow issue. The major issue, 99.9% of the issue, is runoff. That's what destroyed the bedding for the culvert and exposed it and then caused it to collapse.
Madam
In that
Chair,
order.
how about if we ask the DPW director to ping DES and see if we can get a permit for an emergency repair and see what that would.
We've had that experience in town, and it does work. All it is, and it could happen with
Asking her if she would like me to direct the DPW director, and if it's the consensus of the board, to at least have them open a dialogue with DES.
I'm in favor of that.
You're in favor? You're in favor?
Let's start there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Consensus of the board.
Thank you very much.
Any other? Town administrators update.
So I'm asking for 4 days off, one in September, one in October, 2 in December. I have all that time coming, you guys have to approve that.
Do you want a motion on this, or do we just approve it
As
generally?
long as you guys know, you have to approve my time off, so.
Okay. I make a motion, we approve this time off.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
So just a heads up, not really an action item for us, but the water district is conducting shut-offs this week. They actually started, I think, Monday. They originally had 50 people they were going to shut off, and I think they got it down into like 23. Rick Skarenka from New Hampshire DES notified us because he feels that the town should be aware that it may create a welfare situation for people who can't pay their bill, a health situation for anybody who has medical issues that require potable water, and a safety issue if anybody has sprinklers in the buildings that are being shut off. So I took it upon myself to ping Peter Kasperzik from the Water District and ask him to please notify both the health officer, the deputy health officer, and the fire department on any shut-offs, so that if there are situations. In addition, the welfare officer has already seen one client that has 5 or 6 children and needs potable water, and has worked with her. The only pushback we're kind of getting is that some of the shut-offs have taken place and the people have come here because they weren't able to reach the water department to pay their bill and turn it back on. So I tried to hook them up with the water department as best as we could, but they don't always have staff available.
Are these shut-offs for maintenance or for non-payment?
Non-payment.
Non-payment, how many?
There originally were 50 on the list, and I believe when they went out to start the shut-offs, there were 20. They were down to 23.
Okay.
So I want to update you on the status of the acquisition of Turntable Park. As you recall, we put on the warrant a request for $1,500 to acquire Turntable Park from the state of New Hampshire. I've been working with Chris Gamache, who is the director of the Bureau of Trails. we've been emailing with him. My predecessor started emailing with him in May of 2016. Your long-term, your 25-year lease with Turntable Park expired in May of 2017, shortly after I came here. Originally, the idea was to acquire it rather than enter back into a lease. And I think there were some good reasons for that, namely that we use it for recreation. Our rec building sits adjacent to it, partially on it. We have put the bandstand in the park, and obviously the turntable is a historic part of the town. The email from Chris Gamache preceding last year's warrant article was that there'd just be some administrative, probably $1,100 in administrative fees that would have to go through all these state agencies, because when the state sells a piece of land or transfers a piece of land, they make sure that none of the agencies want it. Fish and Game, DOT, they make sure that if there's any easements on it, that those are honored. If there was federal grant money involved in acquiring it for them, that sometimes has to be paid back. The long and short of it is that after getting Executive Counselor Joe Kinney involved, now the deal is not that we could transfer it. We would have to pay fair market value for it, and they would have to do an appraisal. And that was never, I have, including Teresa's email, I have 2 years of emails about Turntable Park, and there was never any mention about an appraisal and paying fair market value. I don't have any idea what fair market value is for that, but there has been some ongoing maintenance issues with it. When the railroad came through and improved the crossing here last summer, they damaged like 3 sections of the fence out there. I've been working with Northern New England Railroad to try to get the manager to take responsibility for that. I can't get that done. It looks like we're gonna have to pay for that. We are taking trees down. I mean, we've been good stewards of this park, but this is a whole different deal than what we asked the taxpayers for. This, you know, if the appraisal comes back at $100,000, is that something that we would still be interested in? I don't know what it would be. So I think that for now, we don't have to pay for the appraisal. The state has to do the appraisal. They have an inside agency that does that. So I think hopefully for March's town meeting, we should go ahead and ask for the appraisal, and then you and the budget committee can decide if you're going to take it to the people and ask them to pay for the park, or if you're going to continue either a short-term or a long-term lease pending that. The thing with our 25-year lease is even though it's expired, it has a continuance clause, so it just renews every year with the same basic parameters of what we signed 25 years ago.
Does that park include the turntable?
It does, yep.
Well, shouldn't Heritage be part of this? I mean, can't they get some grants to acquire that? The Heritage Commission?
Maybe, but we never, I'm telling you right now that until yesterday, when Joe Kinney finally got a straight answer, and not from Chris Gamache, but from the commissioner, of what was holding this all up. And it's the fact that it needs an appraisal and we need to pay fair market. That has never, ever come up.
I realize that we're hearing it for the first time.
I think that Heritage can. Heritage is interested in purchasing the Freight House with the end of the Beck McCrory money and putting it on that property. So obviously it is in their best interest, I would say, to acquire it. Because if we lease it and the state ever decides that they want it back for any reason, we would have to move the building off or forfeit the building.
I'd like to get Heritage Commission involved in this.
Sure.
I mean, they're experts in our
She is
town.
involved. I've spoken to Pam Wiggin, and Joe Kinney spoke to Pam Wiggin about this. They are involved. That's why I kind of tried to keep pushing this forward of what is the holdup. I understand you have a million state agencies, and New Hampshire Preservation Alliance will tell them where on that property they can place the Freight House because of the easements and the federal grant money. So yeah, I think it has to be a collaborative effort, but
do you think
we only got the approval for $1,500 in administrative fees. So what I'm doing is come back to the board. I don't have the authority to,
I understand
start
that.
this ball rolling. So I think in the first instance, we asked the state to do that appraisal, and we maybe ask Councilor Kinney to light a fire under that, so it's ready for the March town meeting in the chance that we want to apply for grants or funding.
But in the meantime, I'd like to see if we can get Pam to meet with the board here and discuss her options and whether the grant money through the Heritage Commission, so we can get this. I don't want the town to pay fair market value for that. That's ridiculous.
Especially when the market value is
Yeah.
at its peak.
I mean, fair market value for a 100-year-old turntable, who's gonna figure that out? I mean, right?
Yeah.
The city of New Hampshire.
Yeah, well, excuse me.
It's a hole in the ground with some logs going over it.
Exactly, I mean,
That cut granite's worth a lot.
well, I know the granite is, but we're not gonna destroy it to get the granite, right?
It's the property value.
So, I mean, what are you gonna do with it other than make it into a park? And what's the value of a 100-year-old turntable that's no longer operating?
Well, and the bottom line is, do we even want to be in a lease agreement? If we can't acquire it, they're not going to do anything to it, so let them continue to own it, and we just mow it and maintain it like we have, or not. I mean,
Heritage is meeting next Wednesday.
So maybe you want to do a joint meeting, maybe one or more of you want to go to the Heritage meeting, because you won't meet again for 2 weeks, and I'd like to get them at least looking at the appraisal. I don't think we're going to be ready to pull the trigger in March, but at least we'll know what we're talking about, so we can disclose it to the residents.
Okay.
And she's gone for the whole winter, so you know she can apply for grants over the interim, but we may or may not be ready with a grant piece in March, but at least we would know what we're talking about financially.
They will only have one other meeting, which will be in November, first Wednesday in November. So, do you want to go to that meeting?
Sure, I'd love to.
Okay.
So since there'll be a quorum of you,
I won't go. He can go and discuss it with him.
Yeah.
or there could be a quorum, and we can just post it as a joint meeting. Your call. I mean,
It doesn't matter to me.
I'm happy to go to.
Okay.
Tony, can you
So
just
do
send
you
me
want me to ping Joe Kinney and start the ball rolling on the state appraisal, as long as there's no cost to us for that appraisal?
Sure.
And I'm sorry, I should have done a better job of shepherding that, but honestly, it's.
Well, it just happened yesterday, so.
It's disconcerting.
Yeah.
So we just received a ISO letter. I think it's the Insurance Services Organization. So the ISO evaluates fire departments for a rating, which in turn affects what people pay for fire insurance. They also, which I guess I didn't even know this, they evaluate your building and code enforcement office, and you get a rating for that as well. The last time we were, you can get so the classification is 1 through 10, 1 being the best, 10 being the worst, and and they don't say when they evaluated us last, but we are at a 6. So they have provided the building department with a questionnaire to fill out, which Russ is about halfway through, and they'll be reevaluating us. So I just wanted to know if we can do better than a 6, that that affects people's insurance, because if we're enforcing codes and building, so this is a good reason to have building and zoning codes, because actually there is kind of some give back at the other end. So I will let you know. I don't know how usually you do the questionnaire, they come out. They've got a meeting set with Russell on November 16th, so I assume it'd probably be 30 days after that before we got a written evaluation.
Can I say that?
Sure. Yep. And I don't know when we were last evaluated. I kind of want to figure that out, but we couldn't find anything in the file, so we'll be researching that. Do you have any questions on that? So the next thing is ambulance write-offs. We have a few. I have four bills that I would like to write off, and 3 bills, 2 from one person, that I would like to send to Experian. Here's the list. The amount to be written off is $1,977.30, and the amount to send to Experian for possible collection is $1,249.48.
From 2017.
Yeah, we pretty much, so when I came here, we had $250,000 in bad debt going back 3 years. We promulgated a written policy on writing them off, and I told you that I would review them at least quarterly. So far, I've done pretty well at reviewing them monthly, and if we write these off and send to Experian, we would be at $7,983.51 of bad debt.
Oh. Good job.
Much better, yeah, right.
I think our auditors are much happier with us, and honestly, the 46 people that had died and still had bills pending,
Yeah.
we were
Do you
never.
need a vote to write these
Yeah.
off?
I do.
Okay.
For the amount?
Make a motion to write off the 1977 30 cents and send the 1,249.48 to Experian.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So I need to book some work sessions with
Did
you.
wanna do this? I'm sorry.
I need to book some work sessions with you to work on, well, the first one I'd like to book with you is I'd like to have a work session with you, the police chief, the building inspector, and the DPW director to look at vehicles and what we can, so money in the budget that we can bring to this issue. So you know that we have a $3,000 bill for the building inspector, and he's putting 200 miles, they're each putting 200 miles a week on their personal vehicles. You have an employment agreement authorizing the DPW director to have a take-home car, and there's no car to take home. The police department has a all-wheel drive car that they could take the lights off and make available to us, which would probably work until it got really bad snow-wise, because the building inspector is on some pretty iffy sites in the winter. But there's also some money in the budget that has not been spent because we went without a DPW director for almost 10 weeks. And so I think we need to sit down and have a work session where those department heads say what's in their budget, what they need. We try to figure out a way to accommodate all the department heads and all the vehicle needs for the least amount of money. And also the impetus for time frame on this is that there is an auction at the White Farm in Concord in the middle of October. And so they would need you to authorize an expenditure up to a certain amount if they can find a used four-wheel drive truck. But I think we need to sit down and see that on paper, and we need to figure out what funding is available, what the important, we need to rank the needs and see what we can figure out in this budget, and then moving forward what we're going to propose to the budget committee and then put on the warrant for the residents to.
So do you need that during the day when they're here?
I think, so the other piece of this is we need to start having our budget work sessions.
Yeah.
You meet with the department heads in work sessions before you go to the budget committee. Last year we did a full day on Tuesday and 4 hours on Friday, and we got them all done. I don't know if it works for you guys to do like that vehicle piece for an hour in the morning and then book the department heads hourly after. We gave, I can't remember, did we give was an hour the most for like police and DPW? It was a little.
No, I don't remember the schedule.
We did it all day.
We did it 8:30 to 5:30 on Tuesday, and then we did a 1 to 5:30 on Friday, and we got it done in 12 or 13 hours.
So have they gotten together just in the interim to try to figure out how to, I know they were all gonna meet and figure something out as far as what vehicles they had to loan out?
No, because I think it's really important that we have the finance piece and your permission piece. Like, we can do that inventory. I'm waiting for mileage numbers. We know what we have and what year they are, but you know, you're gonna have to, this is an unbudgeted, there's money in their budgets that will not get spent on things. For example, liquid calcium. He's not gonna buy $12,000 worth of liquid calcium. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So, but that, you have to give us permission for that.
I was, over the last 2 weeks, because I didn't know how many vehicles we had and what mileage they were at, and I asked for like an inventory of all the vehicles that are registered and seeing what their mileage is at. So that way we kind of have an idea of what we're looking at. But yeah,
well, I'm, as you know, I'm retired, so I'm open to work sessions any day, any time, whatever you want to do.
I'm retired too.
I know you were.
So, Vin, what's your availability on Friday, October 5th?
I think October 5th I should be all set. I could be here during the day. If something changes,
So would we do that one all day?
Well, I think what we do is we schedule an hour for the vehicle thing. We get that inventory. We make sure they have all their ducks in a row and bring everything. I'll review the budget with Michelle. We'll figure out what money we think might be available to bring to bear to this problem. And then we just roll up our sleeves and figure out what the absolute drop dead need is for this year. Because the problem with need for this year is it actually goes till April of next year. Because, you know, the police chief has a truck that we might be able to use, but if he doesn't buy the replacement cruiser until April, it's not going to get delivered until May or June. So you're actually talking about the need from now until June of next year. So I think we spend an hour. I think we get all our ducks in a row. We're ready to go. We roll up our sleeves and we deal with that problem for an hour, and then we book a couple of departments to do their budgets as well.
As far as working all day on a budget and then a half a day, to me, I'd rather do 3 half days. My powers of concentration. If I start at 8 in the morning, I'm not going to be doing justice if somebody comes in here at 3 in the afternoon, because I'm going to be burnt out and I'm not going to really pay attention like I should. I'd rather do 3 half days.
Okay.
So I'm ready to go and
that's fine, but then you're looking
not
at
all day.
October 5th, 12th, and 19th.
Well, why can't we?
Because he's only available on Fridays.
Just Fridays?
or the evening.
Or nights.
Or nights.
And if we did it at night, we're talking about 7 nights, 7 2-hour nights, because it's not realistic to do 7 to 9 or so.
I mean, I can do all day. Don't get me wrong.
I mean,
I don't think we're going to be very effective as selectmen reviewing a budget when we've been sitting here for 7 8 hours on it.
I just brought that up because that's how you did it last year.
I know, and I wasn't here last
right,
year.
And I'm not
and I would
to
have
that
objected
idea.
last year if you asked me.
However you guys want to do it, just tell me so that I can book it. But we have the month of October to get it done, and then the budget committee usually starts in November. So you tell me however you want to do it.
I can do all, if you feel you want to do it that way again, I'm game. I'm just saying.
I can do all day, but
Okay.
especially
What
on
about an
Fridays.
8:30 to 2:30, 2 days?
That would be fine. That'd
But
be fine.
we've got that vehicle one, so.
Yeah, but that's.
So we
we
just
can do
plan
that.
at 8:30 to 2:30. We'll do the vehicle from 8:30 to 9:30. We'll get his money budgets worked in there till 2:30. And if we need another day at the end, then we need another day at the end.
Okay. That's fine.
Or we can do, you know, if there's only 2 hours left or 2 budgets left, Todd Mason always needs to come in after 3:30. So
Right.
maybe we do the fire budget, because that's fire, the 3 fire stations, it's forestry, it's ambulance. So maybe we do him one separate night.
Yeah, and Todd always does a magnificent job on his budget, so.
Yeah.
If we did at the end of the day, that'd be fine.
And he already has. I mean,
Yeah.
I've already seen his budget and it's good, so.
He's always does a good.
All right, so do you want us, right now, we'll plan on 8:30 to 2:30, October 5th and October 12th. And then we'll do Todd on another evening. Oh, you're gone.
I'm gone.
You're gone from the, is it the 9th to the 13th?
Yep.
So we have to do the 5th and the 19th, and I'm gone on the 19th.
So am I.
So let's start with the 5th.
Okay.
Let's see what we get done on the 5th. We'll get the vehicle piece done, and we'll budget in some budgets, and then we'll see what's left and what we've got for nights.
When are you leaving, Denny?
The 9th.
Okay.
So I'm gonna miss the next one.
Yep.
And
Are you guys okay with still having it with just two of you?
If he wants.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can have it.
Okay.
We've done
We've
that
run the
before.
show before.
I know you have, and you've done a good job.
So I have a request from the Parks and Rec Department to waive the RFP bid process for their feasibility study on their building needs. And Wayne wrote a letter, and we have a letter from UNH. So to recap, they have put this out to bid twice, and the prices come out significantly over what they have to spend. And I want to say they have maybe $12,000 to $15,000
Right.
to bring to bear to this project in a fund earmarked for this. So they put it out to bid twice, and one of the bids came back at like $78,000. One came back at $50,000 for a feasibility study. UNH had told them that they would be interested, and at the time they were doing it for like $7,500 or $9,500. They have since raised their price. They lost some staffing, so both of the times we put it out to bid, even though they said they would be interested in bidding, they did not bid.
Right.
And so basically, the Parks and Rec Committee has met about this, and Wayne Robinson, the Park and Rec Director, and then UNH has said they would be interested. I think they said they can do it for
10,000 at the most, and quite possibly less.
less.
Yeah.
So basically, they're asking for a waiver from our purchasing policy because they have already bid it twice, and it came back at such a, not ridiculous number, but it came back at a number that they can't entertain.
Yeah, if we get a unanimous, we can waive that. If all three of us
Yep.
vote on it, we can waive that.
Actually, I think it just takes a quorum because it's your own policy.
Yeah. So we can waive it. I'm in favor of
Agreed.
waiving it and going with the UNH. I was on that committee, I resigned, but I was on that committee and we talked about it, and it's an excellent price, and they do a good job, so I'm totally in favor of this.
Ain't you?
All right.
Some consensus about you, Ben?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds
Can you
good.
guys make a motion, just because it is
Okay.
it is one of your written policies, I want to make sure that we don't run afoul of you guys.
I make a motion, we waive
Bid requirements of the purchasing policy for the
the
feasibility
purchase
study.
the requirements of the purchase policy, for Parks and Rec, and that, they've already raised, 8,500, so, I mean, they do a good job
Yep.
raising and,
Yep.
and,
They've got the
They
money to
really-
cover this, so.
yeah, so I make a motion that we waive that
Second.
policy.
I just got one thing in it, because of the fact that they have put it out to bid, and they're not getting, this is a price that, this is an area that they did come back with a bid, so that's why I think it's okay to do that.
Yep.
We just don't wanna make a habit of it, I guess, right?
Right.
No, we don't.
No,
Especially,
it's on a case
But
by
this
case.
is a very good price.
Yep.
I mean,
Yes.
for sure.
we're not gonna beat this ever.
And they've
We know
seen
that.
their process, they just did it for, was it Sanford, Maine?
Yeah.
They've seen their product, so they know
Right.
that it's
It's very good.
comprehensive and it's what they're
Yeah.
looking for, so.
And they're fully staffed now,
Right.
Yeah.
so,
We need a vote on that?
yep,
Yes.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. Just a heads up for the Greater Wakefield Resource Center, they provided their minutes and a financial statement, which they are supposed to do quarterly, but they do it a little bit more frequently than that, I think now. So, if you guys have any questions about that, I can ping them on it.
Yeah, I want a chance to review it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have any questions, just email me and I'll send them down to their administrator. And the next thing I have is, I just got this Tuesday. This is the results of the survey about the bridge and whether it is in Acton, Maine, or... So it's really interesting. This goes all the way back to the King's Grant in 1737, when King George II ordered that a commission from the two provinces come to settlement regarding the location of the province line. And then the agreement was confirmed by the king in 1740. In 1827, the boundary again came into question. After a meeting in 1828, commissioners from both the states of New Hampshire and Maine agreed that the dividing line shall pass up the middle of the river of, I can't say. And the Great East Pond was determined as the head river in a previous survey by Walter Bryant from 1740. The call for the middle of the river is consistent with traditional riparian boundary law. On December 18, 1963, the state of New Hampshire acquired Great East Lake Dam and the surrounding area from public service. I mean, it gives the whole history of this. And basically, the surveyor's finding is the second tract of this deed describes the course along the state line as following: state boundary and center of inlet canal and outlet canal crossing County Road, now Canal Road. This description confirms the earlier state line descriptions. Without specific exclusionary language stating that the boundary is either side of the river or canal, it is assumed that the boundary follows the thread or the middle of the canal. In the course of my research, I have not noted any of this exclusionary language. My professional opinion is that the state line follows the middle of the channel from Great East Lake down the center of the canal under the Canal Road Bridge all the way to Horn Pond. Therefore, the bridge lies both 50% in Wakefield, New Hampshire, and 50% in Acton, Maine. My recommendation is we send this to Acton, Maine's Board of Selectmen so that they can have it reviewed by their attorney, and that we also send it to Rick Sager in the off chance that Acton, Maine's attorney wants to call Rick Sager and have any kind of conversation about it. But
who was disagreeing with us? Was it just Acton, Maine, or was it the state of Maine that said that they don't own that bridge?
Well, the state of Maine does not help. The state of Maine has said, so our engineers contacted Maine DOT. Maine DOT does not have a state aid bridge program, so it is not a state bridge and they are not interested in helping.
So it's Acton, Maine that we're working with?
It's Acton, Maine,
okay.
And Acton, Maine is adamant that they only own the Acton approach.
Okay.
And I think that this isn't wishy-washy, or it might be
this. It's pretty clear.
Yeah, for a 1737 grant from the king, it's pretty...
Well, aren't we going to need a written letter from the selectmen in Acton, Maine that they accept this? I mean, we have to settle at some point that they own half that bridge. Somebody's got to commit to it.
Well, and because our DOT will not give us one dime more than 80% or 50%.
Yeah, so somebody in Maine has to buy this document and say, we agree, we own half the bridge.
And I asked our engineers, worst case scenario, because I'm kind of a worst case scenario gal, what happens if they don't? Because they were pretty adamant. And he said that it would go to the attorney generals of the two states. And since that bridge is in imminent danger of being closed, I pray to God that doesn't happen, because I can't even imagine how long. That's why I said that, you know, with it being both interstate and historic, it's going to be a project anyway, and it will take more time and more thought and more design. But then to add this, now I don't know, maybe a Maine lawyer would look at this and agree, but the sooner we get this to Acton, the sooner they have the same information we have. I think that's only fair, that we provide this to them and let them hem and haw about it. And
Well, I guess I'm saying is, if we're sending it to the selectmen, should we be copying the Attorney General in the state of Maine to get him in the loop? I mean, they could drag their feet for years over there before they bucket up the channel. It seems to me we have to be proactive and not only let Acton know that they own half of it, but get somebody higher up in the state of Maine.
well, I think in the first instance we would put them on notice.
Okay.
Let's give them a time frame to hear back from them though, because I'm not sure the Attorney General will care. He'll put it in file until.
But what you just said to me is that if
We have to bring suit though. They aren't just going to look at it out of the goodness of their hearts.
That's my point. If we have to bring suit, I'd rather he knows about it in advance as opposed to getting dumped on him and he says, what's this all about?
It's certainly your call. I think
you're right.
I think that you should try to have a good relationship with Acton, Maine and give them a chance first before you go over their heads to their, how would you feel if Acton, Maine, it was in the other shoe and you didn't even get a chance to say, wait, we might agree with that. We haven't even looked at it.
I wouldn't be offended if they copied our state attorney general.
I'll copy the AG, but I'm telling you, the Maine AG isn't going to do anything with it. He's going to go back to Acton.
But at least he's on notice that we have an issue here and this has got to get resolved.
Do you want it to go to the Board of Selectmen, or do you want to skip the Board of
No,
Selectmen?
I think it should go to the Acton Board of Selectmen and the State Attorney General. Get him in the loop.
And put
And Rick second.
Yeah, and then put CC right at the bottom of it that it went to both, so they know, they're not surprised about it.
Okay. Do you want to send a copy to Maine DOT, just because they'll probably ping them too?
Sure.
I don't,
Because that, I mean,
again, they're not taking any jurisdiction, but.
this has been going on for years, and I don't want it to drag on for another 20 years. I mean, we've got to bring this to a head, get it fixed, and move on with life.
Well, it'd be nice if we could get it fixed before it collapses. Or not collapses, but gets closed, because if they order it, that's another thing. I mean, that's as important to them as it is to us for commerce. And so, and the drive around the detour is the same for both. It's 9 miles. So I can't imagine, one thing that did come up at the main selectmen's meeting too, that we probably should address, is having our PD enforce the weight restriction and do a little bit better. I don't know how often they go out there, but if nobody's enforcing that, that is probably the only single thing we can do right now to help, get along longer, is to not have heavy trucks going over it, because that's why they put the weight restriction on it in the first place. It's damaging it and continues to damage it, and we really need some time to get this under our belt. So.
There's not a restriction on there
There is
now?
a restriction, but I don't think it's being well, and Acton, Maine didn't think it was being well enforced either. And I think if our PD, and they use the sheriff's department there, but they have a sheriff now exclusively dedicated to them, he would know, like, they're going to tell him to enforce the weight restriction, and we need to tell our PD to make some patrols out there.
You probably have to get the state police involved, because they have the scales. The RPD can't pull cars over, they don't have the scales to weigh them if they are overweight.
So could we ask
Yes.
the state police to come and do some details out here where
they'll bring their portable scales down and they'll park there and they'll make a statement.
Okay. Does anybody have an issue with that?
Nope.
Just so, do what we can to.
We've already gone by the time, Ralph, sorry.
Just real curious about, is there an emergency action plan if the arch collapses?
No.
Would you?
Yeah, drive 9 miles.
Well, could the board consider?
Well,
I'm giving you an idea that you might not have thought of, but maybe if there's a price of a precast span that you have an idea what would cost, is that something you could look into?
I don't even want to consider that. I want to fix the bridge the way it is. It's a historical bridge, it's beautiful, but we want to fix it. We don't want to put anything out, we just want to.
We have talked to the engineers about a plan of maybe putting a bridge over a bridge until something
in case something happens. It has been brought up.
Good. Thank you.
Yep.
Let's see. So we're getting ready to set a tax rate, and our auditors changed the MS5. They revised it because it did not match the MS9 and 10, and they never told me, so I need a new signed MS535. That's one of the documents we need to set the tax rate.
When are we gonna do that?
As soon as we have all our documents in, they won't even set a date for me. But in an aside, they did finish the update of assessments, and we have picked up $190,582,549 in assessed value, and an additional $8.5 million in utilities. So we have broken $1 billion in assessed value. We're now at $1,100,079,865 in property, and we are at $18,846,300 in utilities. So that our DRA's utility values were $10,252,000, and going with that private company, we picked up $8.5 million in assessed value, which is over $100,000 in taxes that we paid $9,750 to have done.
I'd like to ask the selectmen if they would be interested in allowing Howie Knight to sit in when we do the tax rate. Ben and I have never done it. You've done it once, and Howie's been involved in previous years. So when we do that, I'd like to have Howie present.
So last year I did it, and
Right.
the board,
No,
it doesn't get done like that anymore. It's
Yeah,
all
well,
done on the computer
But
in my
before we
office.
set the tax rate, there are some reserves we can play back and so forth. I want
Yep.
all
So
of
I
us
bring that
involved.
to you the meeting before
Yeah.
DRAs.
Yeah, exactly, and I'd like Howie present at that
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
So, we signed this on this page. It says name, position, and signature. We have to fill all that out?
Yep. I can write yours in though, if you just want to sign it, just stamp it and I'll print your name.
Okay.
So I have two things left. There was a Spectrum update, they're going to digital.
Yeah.
Apparently we don't have any choice.
Right.
And everything's gonna change again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then, and I forwarded that to, there was a video about it, so I forwarded that to Clearview so he could run it as a public service announcement. That's what we got. And it actually, I just got this today, and it's actually gonna happen before your October 12th meeting, so I wanted to make sure that it got in this meeting. And then my final thing was, at the last meeting in October, I'm gonna set up a public hearing for you to revise the building permit fees. Part of what came out of the update and assessment is that per square foot building fees are at around $110 per square foot, and our building permit fees are reflecting $70. And our building permit fees have not been addressed in a couple of years. So Russ has asked us to revise the schedule. And your requirements are that there be a public hearing on that. So I'm going to set that up for the October 22nd, 24th. The October 24th meeting, and do the right noticing and stuff, so.
Okay.
Just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And I'll try to get something out to you in advance of what we're talking about going from and to. And that's all I have. Sorry for so much.
Don't let it happen again.
You know, this stuff, like the agenda closes and then all this stuff happens and it's like, does it have to be tonight? No, it can be.
Okay. So, what do we have left?
Treasurer's monthly report. We have that in our packet.
Yep. Do you know how much we have left in the legal fund right now? Any idea? We getting close?
We are getting close because we spent some money.
Right, I get that.
Yeah,
So,
so
right.
probably closer than, I wanna say I looked at it last month and we probably had eight or 10,000 now.
So we can sneak it up on it.
Yeah, but our bills are usually only a couple thousand, and you gotta remember that like one of the bills last month was $1,006 of that I charged to land use, cause it was all building, code,
Okay.
planning board, zoning board, so even though the bills come in, they don't always get coded to the legal line, sometimes they go to assessing or building or land use,
Alright.
so there is a little wiggle room in there.
Okay.
I will double check that tomorrow though, because we just cut bills today,
Mhm.
so I'll double check that tomorrow and the one that you approved and let you know what it is.
Okay.
Okay. Building permit releases,
You have two.
and those are the ones I have to sign.
Those are the ones you have to sign.
Explain this to me now. Why do the selectmen sign this? What's this
Because you're
about?
building on a class 6 road or a private road and you have to release us from liability because we don't maintain those roads to try to avoid what has happened on Pond Road and some other roads that, you know, when your house was built there in 1937, it was a cart path, you didn't care.
Yeah.
But now we know people are building on class 6 roads and they need to know in advance that we don't maintain that road in the winter
Okay, I understand.
or in the summer,
Yep.
if it's class 6.
Just learn something
And-
else.
One of these is on Plantation Drive, it's tax map 117, lot 30. Been signed by everybody except us. Do we want to accept that?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The other one is on Concord Lane, tax map 80, lot 35.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm gonna sign these. Gee.
Oh, all three of us have signed it.
Yep.
Sorry, we've replaced the form online, Denny, but some of the old ones are still floating around. We'll get there.
Which reminds me, how do you want your name in the signature line? Do you use a middle initial or?
No, I don't. I do on a checkbook, but here it's fine, just Dennis Miller, fine.
Okay.
I signed Dennis, but nobody calls me Dennis, you know. Except my mother.
And that probably means you're in trouble.
Okay, payment manifest. First one is voided checks. This one's for voided checks.
I signed that this morning.
Yep. And that's $310.
Yep.
Ben has signed that.
Dennis signed it too?
Yep.
Okay, well.
I need to sign it.
Okay.
The other one is payroll warrant
Yeah.
for $74,763.26.
Yep.
Anybody want to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That one's been signed for by all of us.
Okay.
And the other one is treasurer's warrant, $94,797.95. And this is for check register detail.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. This one needs to be signed.
Let me go.
That's all right. I can get it. I can do it. And, oh yeah, we have some. Oh, this is, for appointing for, Evan McDougal for the, Spalding, is it the Spalding, Stratford
Stratford.
Regional Planning.
Yep.
He expressed an interest, so I'll ask you, what do you want to do? Do you want to appoint him for the term that expires 2020? Or do you want to do it, here it says expiration date, August 1st, 2022?
Is that what he wanted to do, the 2022?
Stratford Regional Planning Commission said the open one is the 2022, that Steve Brown had the original one. And that he was.
So, then we should do that one.
I thought we
Right?
did, but
I
I
think we
don't know.
moved that at the last meeting.
I thought you
Oh.
already moved that.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was here.
I don't know why 2020 is still on there. I guess that's how the form came, with your choice.
So,
These,
I signed back here. Nobody signed here, but it looks like you signed the second page.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
because that's the 2022.
Okay, got it.
Did I put them in your box?
And
Or did you
these,
just pick one?
we always
Yeah.
sign, we don't look at it.
See if
It
it
says
has
it's
maybe
from
two
Valerie.
choices.
Okay.
And that's the treasurer's report from what she has collected.
Okay, and this is for a 2-week period? 1 week,
1 week.
13, 19.
Yes.
Okay, that's another week. That's another week, okay.
Motor vehicles is averaging about $1 million a year here.
Yeah. Well, you can see why when you pay $70,000 for a pickup truck.
I don't pay some.
Some people do.
Somebody pays that, that isn't me.
Me either. And we've got minutes. Board of Selectmen minutes now. You weren't here,
No,
right, Denny?
I can't approve it yet.
No.
I make a motion, we approve the public minutes for September 12th, 2018.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And,
I'm gonna assume then you're abstaining on this.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
and I'll make a motion that we accept September 12th, non-public, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then September 14th.
Make a motion to approve the public minutes for September 14th, 2018.
Now.
This is the, this is the
This
bridge.
is the one where I left.
Just where you were there, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna have to vote to approve
Yeah.
now because there's only 2 of you, Betty, who
Right.
were remotely. And you were there for the beginning when.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna give them to you, huh?
Come on, Tony. Just wake up from
Just
today.
along for the
Okay.
ride.
You were doing something.
I know.
Now we have
Oh, yeah.
Selectmen's work session. I have a couple things to bring up. I make a motion that we appoint Denny as a budget representative for,
Second.
Thank you.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Now, we also need a vice chair.
I make a motion that we appoint Denny Miller as our vice chair.
Second. There you go, Denny.
And he didn't even get up to leave the room. He was sitting right there for the whole thing.
Well, I think we should appoint Vin, because I'm only a sub.
That's fine. That's
Short
fine.
time.
That's
I
fine.
think we should appoint Ben Fife.
You're gonna have to withdraw them.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, yes.
I withdraw my motion.
I
Okay.
withdraw my second.
Okay.
I try.
I make a motion, we appoint Ben as vice chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do I abstain on that?
You can, or you think you'll do a good job.
Do a good job?
Yes.
I do,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Toot your own horn.
Right.
Yeah, somebody else is doing it.
Exactly.
Okay, don't let Denny sign anything he's not supposed to
No.
over there.
His
No.
name's not here.
No.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything under selectmen's?
I got something if Denny wants to get. I just had a quick question of our evacuation building for if we have an emergency. Right now, it's at the public safety building. And my concern is if we have a major evacuation, I just don't understand why we don't have something like the school as the evacuation area. It's a brick building, it has a huge parking lot. They can fit more people in the gymnasium. I just think it's something that we maybe discuss down the road as to why it's like that.
So we're gonna be having EOP meetings. We have to update our emergency operations plan, and I strongly suggest that we discuss the pros and cons of that, because one or more of you can be involved with that as well.
Okay.
I think the school is problematic as well, because if school is in session and you're trying to shelter children and have parents come and pick them up, the last thing they need is more evacuees. So I think we need to, have more than one choice of places of evacuation based on what the incident is and what other buildings are affected and the time of day and things like that. So I agree with Vin that it doesn't make sense. You don't usually evacuate people to the place where your emergency operations center is for obvious reasons. But we would also have to find a place big enough, safe enough, that could accommodate, would maybe have a generator. I mean, there's a lot of constraints in that, and we have to figure that out.
I would just like to figure that out sooner than later.
Yes.
Instead it happens, it's.
There's not a lot of room down at that. They have that one room with the kitchen.
Right.
But they'd be making meals for first
firefighters
responders.
and responders
exactly.
and mutual aid and all
Right.
that stuff. So.
And this building has a generator, so we could power the furnace and the lights, but there would be much going on here as well. And there's not, other than this room, a lot of places to do that. We can't provide food. I have thought about in the summer, like when it's really hot, we could turn the air conditioner on in here and let people recreate here during the day if they don't have. But we don't have a kitchen, really a staff kitchen. So it's something we've got to talk about and figure out. But we're starting our rewrite of our EOP, and it's going to be facilitated by a person who does this all the time. So maybe she can give us some more ideas, and we can come up with a list of, sometimes it's the churches have generators or kitchens. We'll just have to figure it out. But I don't know.
Right. I just wanted it on the radar.
We can work with this, and we can work with the school as well. I mean, I think in the summer, that's kind of a no-brainer. I think it just becomes more problematic during the school year.
St. Anthony's has been used in the past when they had the school bus accident quite a few years ago. Everybody came, they brought everybody there because they have a kitchen and during that snowstorm, but probably that might not work now.
We had a memo of understanding with the Catholic Church in Greenville, and we got a grant for a generator for them because they had a kitchen, and they even had enough space. You could bring your pets in kennels, and they had a separate room because you have to keep the pets separate in case people are allergic.
They have all of that over there, but.
Yeah, we had a memo of understanding with our cat, but that's something you have to work out with each individual place and figure out what works. But yeah, I think we should definitely have that discussion because I don't think the public safety building is probably the place.
So, I'm waiting for a motion to.
So moved.
Adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.